Good morning, everybody. My name is Roger Scriven. I'm with the Morningstar Packing Company. We've been working for Morningstar over 30 years now and watched it grow from a small company to one of the larger companies in tomato processing.
Hello, Chris Rufer, Morningstar. I founded Morningstar back in 1970 driving a truck. And so that's my favorite thing is hauling tomatoes, but we process a little bit. We produce tomato paste and by and large, bulk diced tomatoes and some finished products. So I've been in the industry some time and still operate full-time in the business and enjoy talking to Roger and folks about our industry. So I wish I could be there. My daughter's having a baby about that time, so I'm predisposed, but enjoy the visit.
So sitting here today, I was just wondering, one of the topics we should discuss is seed. We've had a challenge of getting seed and getting produced, and it's all overseas production and with the hybrids. But we're seeing new diseases come on quicker than we've seen in the past. And, want some perspective on what do you think we need? GMOs is something we need in the future. I know there's a lot of controversy about it, but we do produce cotton and cotton, soybeans, corn here in the U.S., GMO, alfalfa. What about the tomatoes? What do you see a need for GMO?
Well, they've been constrained quite a bit because of the marketing, but as far as production, we need this. So it's there's been some labeling laws, and they want to put GMO on labels, and the industry is very against that. I'm actually for that because what it would do, we'd have to label everything GMO because so many corn and soybean, huge crops are GMO, and it's hard to believe how you can not have some GMO in your food products. So if it actually had to label it, then it would give us a license to actually use GMO technology in our processes, and which would be an excellent advancement. As far as varieties, we reached a level on viscosity that we really can't do anymore, I don't think. We're very, very good at that. The ratio of solids and the viscosity are such that ketchup and whatnot has to be produced with a certain amount of tomato solids. So I think we've reached the limit on that. So disease, to me, is the big issue. Disease, though, is what we're going to have to deal with in the future, and that will allow our yields to improve, and quality factors. So we can do a lot more with GMO.
As far as planting and seeds and plants, the industry in California is 100%, pretty much 100% transplants, and that's because we price of seed we have to pay here. You see it just continue to be transplant, or are you thinking some evolving into some other form of putting a seed or a plant in the ground? I
think it's going to evolve. It has evolved from transplants to direct seed to transplants. When we went to the hybrids cost a lot more. They cost a lot more, so the process, the seed developer, seed producer has to charge more because their costs are much higher. And you do that, then there's less seed being used, so good moves to transplants. As far as that technology, I can't see what it's going to be, so I don't have any vision on really how it's going to evolve. But I hazard guess it's going to change because we're seeing so we got transplants, and we're seeing a week later in the harvest season actually, even though it's quote supposed global warming, we're seeing a little later. So maybe some back into some direct seed in some fashion. With maybe different seeds, coatings, things like that would actually maybe pre-emerge, and we can get going faster. A longer season.
And then growers, traditionally in California, we've done just a contract for X number of tons or acres, and that's been our traditional way of doing it. We've done, I know at Morningstar, we've done some joint ventures with growers. How do you see that evolving in the future?
That has to evolve. The way we're doing it right now, we've done studies quite some time ago looking at the fresh industry and the process industry. So you got tomatoes, potatoes, corn, and you got a large fresh industry and a large process industry. The fresh industry is characterized by open market pricing, where the prices go up and down quite a bit. But the research that we did shows the pricing actually on an average over the year is somewhat the same. But what's meaningfully different is the consistency of the production volumes. The number of acres per year in contract industries jump up, way up and down. And yet the fresh industries stay steadier. So you've got a lower cost structure when you've got less resources, less fixed assets per unit of production. So industry-wide, we'd be better off if we had more of an open market pricing system, individual negotiations with growers, pricing by variety, I think should come about. There's a definite good feature for associations, trade associations, and whatnot, but I don't see it. In fact, in the bargaining part, I think it holds us back. But there's very positive things that associations can do, which is to do more research that individual grower cannot afford to do. There are common issues, disease and whatnot, that they can get together on. And then it can be obviously a facilitator for pricing, like what processors are offering this, what processors are offering that kind of pricing. So it can be a facilitating organization. So there's a good place for trade associations, including grower associations, in business. But I think more individual negotiating pricing based on varieties, and maybe even a futures market, and more pricing week to week on some things, where you can actually clear the market and we're not disking acres.
You said something in the futures market. You're thinking along the lines of being on the Chicago Board of Trade or something like that?
I would expect something local. Somebody can develop something local. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It's very our industries are very local. The volumes are not what it takes to be on the big futures exchange in New York and Chicago or other places around the world.
Nothing like the cotton and the wheat and the corn and all that.
No, actually, there was a tomato paste contract on the New York Cotton Exchange back in the 60s, and that failed because the market, again, the contracting in advance, the smaller volume, contracting in advance in this case of tomato paste, and the smaller volumes did not allow the market to work. I
know we've been doing harvesting since 1995 for our growers, and it's helped with the cost structure of the grower by us having the machinery and not the grower. What do you think the harvesting is going to continue that line, or what do you think the harvesting will be in the future?
As far as its structure of how we work with growers and processors, being not the processor harvesting so much, but it's around the processor. So it's organized around the processor versus around the grower, and you get more utilization of the equipment. The processing plants usually they have a typical capacity that they run at, and it's pretty consistent throughout the season. Yet one grower can be harvesting today and not tomorrow. The crop can be green, he runs into a green, or it's overripe. So one given grower, particularly then with the different areas around the state or the country, in the case of other places than California, growers grow in this period of time versus that period of time and this period of time. So they harvest during 3-4 weeks, and then another grower is working for 4, 5, 6 weeks, and so they're having to use their equipment over less acres. So centered around the processing organizations, processing facility allows you to more efficiently utilize the harvesting equipment.
I know we've done a lot of work on information coming from the harvester for what's being picked up as MOT or green or things like that. Do you think that'll eventually evolve into maybe some sort of payment schedule for growers, or a way of setting up the factory for what's coming in, or that type of information? Yeah. Instead of waiting until it comes in from the grade station, we have it available right from the field.
I think as far as advancing harvesting, it's pretty well squared away, I believe, given the way we're growing now, of course, and a full destructive harvest. But the information coming from there can be advanced quite a bit to understand the quality and the quantity that's coming across as we harvest. So giving the grower more of an accurate information on yield through the field, let alone the total, here's the acreage, here's the tonnage per acre yields in a whole field. You can have it by area, and then the quality of the product that's being produced can be managed better, and the harvester can be operated more efficiently with information exactly what's going on with the crop as it's actually going through the machine, and how the machine can self-adjust as it goes through the field.
One of the big issues we have in California is freight and getting that product from the field to the factory, and we've always bought, here in California, we buy FOB field. In other countries, it's FOB or delivered to the factory. We're limited because of regulations at 80,000 pounds gross. I know we probably in the future are going to have to change that or get it changed so we can carry more tons per load some way, or you put another trailer on or make our tubs bigger. Do you see those things coming down the line soon, or are we still quite a ways off on that?
That's a question of government and unions, because in the other parts of the United States, you see doubles of or triples of 40, 53 footers running across the major highways. So it would help out a lot to go through a third trailer in California. I don't know what they do around the world, but the restrictions on the roads are so much weight per axle, basically having to do with the road condition and maintenance and how it tears up the roads. But putting another trailer on is a major savings in fuel and productivity. So that's what I see now. Does it happen? It has to do with governments and unions, and unions are pulling the strings on a lot of these things. So that's unfortunate.
Labor is another big issue we have. I know our unemployment is probably right now, I think between 5 or 6% in California. But the skilled labor we need in our factories, how do we mitigate some of the issues because we're getting more sophisticated, you might say? How do we get around that, Chris?
I don't know about getting around it, but we need more talent in the factories and more talented folks. So our approach is more internal. How do you develop people out of younger and then skill them up? So it's unfortunate that the last 40, 50 years or maybe 100 years it's been go to college and whatnot, but our mechanics and those kind of folks, technical folks, earn far more than what the college graduates earn the same age and same backgrounds. So it's I think that's it's a tough one, but we got to solve it. That's what we're in business for. So I think that's the requirement for more talent, technical talent, and knowledge in the factories is going to increase.
There's change gears here to this climate. I know the climate, it's all we hear about is climate change and the end of the world, and the oceans are coming up, and we'll have beach property here in Sacramento before too long, I think. But
right.
Any thoughts on this climate thing? What's going on?
Well, I think we're going to speak too long about that because I read the science magazines, the Scientific American, Nature, and Science Magazine, and MIT Technology. So I read these things and then the books. The argument for climate change is good. I mean, human-caused climate change is good. So their arguments are good. But if you actually sit back and read the arguments on the other side, such as things that the temperature goes up before CO2 goes up. So these things have been studied. The temperatures that now we're seeing, it's going to go up another couple degrees centigrade. It's been there before. So it's depending on how far you want to go back and study this. So it's good arguments on the side that no, it's not. Humans have a very small amount. I think CO2 is maybe, somewhere in the range of 15% of the factor, but water vapor is 85% of the factor. So even double the amount of CO2 in the environment, you're increasing the impact of this capturing of heat in the environment. So it's good arguments on both sides. And then I look at number 3, it's very, very, very complicated. Very complicated. You ask anybody that's advocating this, and that, and ask them, well, why are you advocating these? Why do you think that the humans are causing this? And all I got is bubbles on the lips. They do not understand. Very few people understand this stuff. So it's very, very complicated is number 3. Number 4, from my perspective, is that in Science Magazine, they had a little blurb that 2 years ago on would you contribute $5 or $10 to $100, maybe $50 to our climate change initiative and da-da-da. I wrote back a letter to the editor of Science Magazine, who's the most prestigious magazine in science around the world, I believe, or one of 2. I'll contribute $100,000 to your program if you will have a debate, an open camera, televised debate on climate change. And I'll contribute much more than that to support the debate. Crickets, nothing. So they don't want to debate. So it's unfortunate that the people advocating the human-caused climate change are unwilling to debate, which tells me something. I'm still not convinced one way or the other, but it's a very big open question. And when people are investing money on the farm or in their factories with the assumption that all this is going to happen,
right,
and it's going to be some disaster, doesn't make a lot of sense. So you got to just really, really, really watch that. Anyway, there's good arguments on both sides. I just suggest people that really look at this and not just assume that house prices are going to go up forever, interest rates will go up forever, the stock market will go up forever.
Right.
There's forces that cause things to reverse. And if anything, if you look at this and you study the climate change, natural climate change, ice ages last for 100 million years or something, and then you got warm periods like we're in now, generally that last about 10, 12,000 years. And we're 10, 11,000 years into this warming cycle. So ask the folks, what are you going to do about global cooling? And see what they have to say about that. So anyway.
Government regulation is tough. I mean, it's getting tougher, especially in California, putting a damper on a lot of the things that we could do or to improve our production in the field and in the factories. And where do you think that's kind of heading? Are we still going to continue to get bombarded by this, or will it eventually back off and let us produce what we need?
Well, in the short term, we're going to have more government regulation. That's the trend. And so you can't see much change in the next 3-5 years, maybe 10 years or so. But the more you clamp down on production and capabilities, and you get corruption, and the money's not flowing into the folks at this conference that are working hard to improve productivity and efficiency and supply people with good food. The more you take investment away from us and put it in a quote government sector for current consumption versus investment in industry and production, our production capabilities go down. So you take, Chile's a good producer, so some Chilean folks, they were poor, they were bad off in a sense, poor, and then they developed a capitalist economy and they did phenomenal. And then the socialists got a little more control, and so it backed off. Argentina, things had to get so bad in Argentina, poverty, inflation, et cetera, based on these short-term government policies. So let's get it today, the heck with tomorrow. They'll talk about that but do nothing. And they finally had to elect a libertarian as president, so we'll see how that goes.
All these sustainable programs that are coming out and ethical production, and both in the growing side and the processing side, is what's your views on all that?
Sustainability is simply another word for resource conservation, which particularly farmers and all businessmen have been doing for eons, since day one, because resource consumption equals expenses. And business folks are trying to make a profit, so they don't like expenses. So we have a natural incentive and inclination to conserve resources. So I'd rather be able to produce, millions and millions of pounds of tomato products with no consumption of truck tires, natural gas, electricity, no people, so they can spend their time on the beach, wherever they're doing, and we can produce with no resource consumption. Right. So that to me is sustainability. We've got a severe incentive to do this, and that's what we should do. On ethics, you have to look at. I look at ethics, and you respect people and you respect their property. That's the core of morality. So, and respecting what people represent. In other words, if they represent a product as certain quality, is it true? Mm-hmm. So those three factors there are very key to the ethical environment. And it's individual choices on what people are going to do. So to the degree they look at what a producer or another party is willing to provide to them, and they understand more deeply just what's involved here, what are they representing, and quote, how ethical they are, they make their choices on whether they're going to buy from that person or not. Mm-hmm. And so it's a personal choice in my opinion, but I prefer that those values be adhered to and that people do respect them and put at least some value on that, if not an absolute value, to say, here's my line. You're abusing people, you're physically harming people, you're stealing their stuff, you're misrepresenting your product. To me, that's the line. There's a line there. Don't do it. I just don't support those kind of people. If you want to advance your community, your world, your social environment, don't support that at all.
Right. No, we've seen a lot of changes. What processing in the future, processing tomato factories in the future? You and I discussed a little while ago about what's happening in different countries, and we're seeing little factories, production popping up in like Bulgaria or Hungary or wherever, say in African countries. And do you think that the main producing areas of production will start reducing, like California or Italy or Spain or wherever, and as these other countries come into production, or they'll never will they ever reach a point of being able to supply all of their own needs?
It's number one, dependent on the farming yields. Can they get the yields, and can they farm at a low cost? And that's the tough part, because it's pretty well set. The climates are set, soils are set, the environment is set. such that either that farming is going to work or it's not. So if it's not viable, it's not going to last long term. You can get dictators that throw money at, and I know in Nigeria, you get the president supporting the big manufacturer there. So it's the corruption in various parts. So to the degree it's not economically viable, economically viable, it's not going to work long term. So the other thing on the processing side needs volume. You need scale and volume to have low processing cost. So to the degree you can't get a long season, to the degree you don't have the legal environment, the cultural environment where contracts are respected, and that they can get a consistent volume of product throughout a decent length of season, then the processing doesn't work. So those items are pretty well in place around the world. Maybe new places discovered. In the short term, anything can happen. Subsidies from governments can cause dislocations and disrupt those that are efficient in the business. But that's life. So we'll see how that goes. But I think we're going to be pretty well off with the producing countries that we have. As far as the processing facilities and wet business, I've always looked at the potential, and it looks to be more and more interesting. It's actually perhaps the farming and the production of tomatoes leaving, in essence, California and some other places, depending on where the production and the consumption is. So why not have greenhouses attached to a tomato sauce factory where you get 24 hours a day, year-round production, next to talk about global warming. If somebody's serious about global warming and yet they don't advocate nuclear power, they're not really serious, in my opinion, about global warming or about the production of carbon, because nuclear is more costly than what we got on the natural gas and coal and oil. But with other methods, it's competitive. So I'd say attach greenhouses that take care of your trucking problem, takes care of some of the yield issues, takes care of some of the disease issues, and we certainly get better yields. Right now it's pretty costly, but perhaps greenhouses right next to the finished goods processing facilities. In California, that would be having greenhouses in New Jersey and Chicago and further and more to the east. And if they're attached with a nuclear power plant that provides the energy for them, and it works. So we'll see. So you talk 15, 20, or 50 years down the road, that could very well be the case.
Automation, AI, all this stuff that's coming on, robots start to play a more important role in the factories, and is eliminating people or trying to be more efficient. What do you see that in the future?
We started back with agriculture where we had now we're a couple percent of the population supporting from the food supply, supporting at least in America. And back in the early 1800s, you had 50-60% of the people, and many of them supplying their own food as farmers. But so automation's occurred along the way. I mean, a tractor just takes a lot of people out. So you've had further and further automation, tractors automation. AI to me is simply another, maybe it's a step change, but it's simply better software programming that can access, given today, a lot more data, a lot more computing power available that you can now, they're now writing programs called AI, but it's really simply more sophisticated software to gather information which we can make better decisions. The perfect example, frankly, is the medical field, where you can gather so much information and there's so much research, so much going on that no way does a doctor can understand, given these parameters of what they find in your body, what the different solutions and possible solutions could be for you as an individual. So this artificial intelligence, which is really just more sophisticated, powerful software gathering so much more data that's available now through the internet, can provide answers for. So the same kind of thing. You got a question in the field, what's going on in the factory, you can gather so much more information with the software that's coming out, which will help you make better decisions.
I've seen so many changes in the last 56, almost 60 years I've been around this business that it's hard to believe, and it's exciting to see what the future is going to bring. And so, any closing thoughts on your part, Chris?
Fundamentally, you don't know what the technology is going to be in the future. I mean, if you did, then you would have it, right? And you'd be using it. So then it wouldn't be unknown. So there are all the unknowns, but fundamentally, the new technologies will be discovered, will evolve. But every time those new technologies provide the ability for one individual, given individual, to produce more or to be more efficient. So we get higher yields. We got machinery that'll do more, tractors that'll swath 30 foot wide instead of a cow or a buffalo or whatever, with plowing one row. So these technologies allow individuals to do more, but they convert variable costs to fixed costs. So instead of somebody doing it with their hands, you got a machine doing it. So it converts to fixed costs, and there's ramifications to that. And then along the lines of government, to the degree it's inefficient regulation, inefficient things that we really are doing anyway or should be doing anyway, it adds requirements, which adds administrative costs. Those are fixed costs. So as we go down the road here, you've got more fixed costs versus variable costs. You have more fixed costs in an industry, in any production element. You need to run more volume through them. You need to run more volume through them. You need larger facilities running longer. So it changes the dynamics of the business. In California, we're down to 17 factories to produce 12 million tons. I can see 4, maybe 5 factories in our California industry, which frankly, if I owned the whole industry, I'd shut down. So there's still more consolidation to do. So more fixed costs, larger facilities, more consolidation, both at the farm level and at the processing level. So you really need to understand where your position is in the business if you're going to be successful into the future. And it's going to continue to evolve in this direction.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. I've always enjoyed our conversations over the years. We would just sit and just talk about the industry and really appreciate the time you spend. Thank you.
Thank you very much.